Okay, we're live. Go.
All right. Well, we are here. I guess we're already recording. I'm waiting for my radio. This isn't radio anymore, is it? Partner to show up, Mr. Don Panchito
Your
Villa,
common sensei.
the common sensei. I am the time traveler, as you probably know by now. And I had some thoughts I was going to try and get across today, but I was down there at the coffee shop and I was thinking of what I was going to talk about. And I kept being approached by people who want to talk to me constantly. You know, it is not easy being popular, Frank. It's just not
It's hard
everybody
work.
can do it. It is hard work, and it's not just everybody can do it. But anyway, I got what?
You're vexed.
Vexed?
Vexed.
Oh my, that's a big word. It's an old word. You don't use that
It's only
anymore.
3 letters, VEX.
Yeah, I know. I know what it means.
What does it mean?
I can read and write. It means I'm irritated by you right now, as a matter of fact.
So
You are vexing me.
You've been in a constant
State of vex.
vexation today.
Anyway, I had a couple of thoughts I might get out of the way. Frank, what do you got today? Anything particularly
Not
interesting?
really, just kind of a summary of what happened in Congress, the chaos.
Yeah. Well, I have I'm in a fortunate position of being called the time traveler because I look at the world through the lens of a 19th century throwback because that's how I've lived most of my life. Frank, Mr. Don Panchito Villa, he got all this fancy stuff, computers and online stuff and like that.
I also own a car
Own a car, yeah. Well,
and a cell phone
I got a gun.
to settle the disputes when one steals your car and your cell phone.
Anyway, I have the ability to look at the world through a more of a distant lens. And here, a few years ago, Americans deserve what they get. Really, they do. I've just been watching this, and a few years ago, you got kicked out a guy by the name of Trump. Trump is not the only one that can run the country, but at any rate, let's look at what's happened since. Why did we kick out that guy, whatever his name is, Trump? Because we didn't
Ran him out of town on a rail.
we didn't like how he talked. He wasn't presidential. He didn't look. He just offended me. He was always we weren't electing Mr. Rogers. If you elected Mr. Rogers, you'd had a nice guy who sounded very presidential, wore cardigan shirt, sweaters, or whatever kind of stuff he wore.
Is that all you think they thought, or is that all?
Pretty much, yeah.
No,
You
that's not true.
Well, it is true. You talk to people on this. Have you talked to people on the street?
Your circle of little infidels, if you pay attention to those who are in power, they think this guy's the next Hitler. They think he's the next authoritarian. That when he's in power,
those are the people.
Those are the people who make the rules.
Those are the people in
your,
power.
Your friends are guys who are just buying coffee.
Your average
and
person drinking coffee
and doing nothing.
Those are the
They're
people.
Retired.
The old people they're the people that vote, and unfortunately they voted for him.
Yeah, but the real power is afraid of Trump because they feel he's an authoritarian and is going to line them up and shoot them.
Yeah,
it's stupid, but that's what they think.
But the power comes from the voters because they listen to this crap. Listen, the government is actually absolutely lying to you. We used to have reporters. Remember a time when there was actually a reporter who would dig in dirt, and they would dig for dirt, and that's what they did. They don't do it
Mike
anymore.
Wallace. Remember him?
Yeah, he's the guy that once said, I remember when he said it, he got away with it too. He says, when they were talking about, he's the guy that said that. He got away with that.
I'm going to, that's wrong.
Well, of course it's
Did
wrong.
he say that? Mike Wallace said that?
I forget which one it was. It doesn't matter.
No, you have to. No, if we're gonna.
You know what?
We're gonna edit this out.
We can make
You
all
can't
sorts.
just throw things like that out, especially now that we're on YouTube. You get censored.
Who was the other one?
You can't just talk like you're at your silly little coffee shop and throw things out and libel people.
You are so. You know
I'm
what?
just trying to tell you can't just say shit like that.
Okay, I
without
retract that.
Backing it up.
Well,
I mean, we're
nobody
not,
else
we're
does.
not, we're not in
Okay.
the coffee shop now or the barber shop where you can just throw shit out there.
Look.
And not
okay.
even.
Okay, let's talk about throwing shit out there. Let's talk about the border is closed. The border is closed. There's an absolute utter lie. It is not just a. It's
They don't
not
say that.
just,
They say the border's secure.
The border is okay.
Well, I'm just trying. You got to be accurate.
Semantics. All right, but that's an absolute and utter lie.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to say that.
Yep.
They can say that, but that's okay. But anyway, where are we now? If you look, I'm not with you guys here. I'm in the 19th century. I'm going to stay there. Um, anyway, look at where we during the last part of Trump's administration. That guy, that nasty talker, inflation. Where was it? 2%, I think. Was that? You would know.
That's about right.
Okay, they say that it's only 6%. Go to the grocery store. They talk about inflation, but the problem is that's not food inflation, the real stuff that you and I have to deal with, the bread, the pork, the whatever it is. That's where the inflation is, and that's where it's really hurting people.
And it's
They
wrong.
won't.
You know, just out of curiosity,
Go ahead.
do you know how much the Treasury borrowed last month?
God only knows.
600 billion
Is that all? Why?
in a month.
$1 billion here and $1 billion there.
That's
and pretty
real
soon we're talking
money.
about the real money.
I mean, that's how you create inflation. Just continually borrowing money.
Well, anyway.
No wonder the economy went to 4.5%.
Well, yeah. Anyway, let's go on with what few notes I have here. Oh, that's the other thing. You always hear on the news they say, well, people don't, there's very few people who respect our government anymore. It must be those leftists that don't respect the government anymore. I got news. I'm as American as anybody, and I don't respect it anymore either. So when they take that poll, they're probably taking it from guys like me who love America but don't respect it anymore. I mean, nobody else does. Nobody else does either. You took a look at the entire world. Nobody really does.
Well, I think it's dangerous, more dangerous now, because do you really think they respect Biden?
Yet they don't. No. And what tickles me is you got these kids, college kids, overeducated college kids. You're one of those kids, aren't you?
Programmed.
Programmed.
I was one of those kids. They're programmed.
And he got healed. He got healed.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, brother. I've come to
I
save
got-
the sinner and send the lost lamb back to the fold.
I got religion just like the new speaker in Congress. Speaker Johnson, he got religion.
In my...
Did you hear what somebody asked him? He says, what's your belief system? He goes, read the Bible. That's my belief system. And their heads start spinning just like that girl in The Exorcist.
Geez,
heads
Lord.
exploding, blood
Lord.
coming out of their eyeballs and coming out of their ears. He said, what? He believed the Bible?
In 1920, in my time, you had what was called the KKK, Ku Klux Klan. You remember those guys?
Democrat,
don't-
The Democrat. I mean,
they don't
They
need-
were the Antifa of the Democratic Party.
But they don't need the KKK
They
anymore.
were the
You gotta-
Hamas. They were the underground Hamas of the
well, now
Democratic
you
Party in the South.
They have been resurfaced again. Now they're called college students. They're doing the job that the KKK used to do. They would actually hang most of us who...
And intimidating. Well, you've seen the videos where they're like beating up
Yeah,
anybody who's Jewish or anybody who's on the side of Israel.
yeah. What else did we have before this Mr. Biden? I'm not going to call him a president because he's really not. Am I going to get in trouble for saying that? I
No,
don't care.
but the guy who's now the speaker essentially said that there's enough on him that he should be impeached. So let's see where that goes. And of course, while this whole speakership was going, do you remember they had I think it was one of the congressmen in the committees that's looking into it's called the Impeachment Inquiry Committee. They found some $200,000 or $500,000 check.
200,000.
200,000 from Joe's,
to repay a loan.
From Jimmy Biden to Joe Biden, and it's supposedly to repay a loan, but evidently it lines up with when they got some good news from one of their Chinese contractors or benefactors. So very interesting.
Well, here's another interesting thing. One of the things that we had before Biden was we had Trump, of course, was pulling you people out of the war gradually, but he was going to do it gradually. And what Biden did, and we talked about it on the radio show when we had one, the minute Biden pulled out of Afghanistan the way that he did, he showed the entire world how feckless and weak he is. And we talked about it.
The total foobar.
We said that
Foobar.
you watch, and we said it 2 years ago or whenever it was we said it. You watch now. You watch now. Everybody in the world now knows what a piece of nothing he is. Russia will move. China will move. China hasn't moved yet, but it will. I didn't see Israel coming, but we predicted this because it's so predictable. You can actually see it happening. But anyway, and we had the other thing that's happened recently is Trump also said in the Abraham Accords, which was going to kind of start uniting
Saudi Arabia and Israel and some of the other Arab states.
Yeah, and of course that's dead now. Thank you.
Well,
Oh,
it's on hold, but they want to.
yeah, might as well say.
They being Iran and all the neighboring countries want to blow that up.
Here's the other thing.
Hey, blowing things up comes naturally to that part of the world.
And we love it too because we have an industrial
Oh, yeah,
military. We love it.
we
The
had the-
Democrats love it.
Do you remember the Weathermen?
Yeah,
The
kind of.
they were blowing things up back
Yeah.
in the 60s.
Yeah. But at any
Late
rate, if you
60s.
notice, Mr. Biden has changed his approach. He knows he's probably in a little bit of trouble, so he's going to campaign. And he's campaigned with Bidenomics. Now, that's right up there with the border is secure.
I don't see why are they doing that?
Because it's Biden, and it's working. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's
Borrowing
working.
money. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but have you noticed in
How
the
long is
last?
that gonna work?
Have you noticed in the last couple of weeks, he's now gone and he's no longer Bidenomics. Now he's the wartime president. Since they bombed some place in Syria yesterday, which was whatever. Now he's going to be the wartime president, the hero that's going to save us from war. He's the one that got us in war in the first damn place. I'll tell you what. This country is in some serious stuff. We don't start paying attention. And here's part of the problem. There are Lotus eaters in America who voted, not the power ones, the voted one, the ones I talked about in the first place. Lotus eaters who don't know what the hell's going on.
The what cedars?
Lotus eaters.
The lotus eaters. Oh,
Yeah, it's an old 19th century term. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
No, those the hippies with the what is it? Patchouli oil.
Classic example, yeah.
And flowers in their hair.
Yeah, flowers in there. They got a song about that, don't they?
Yeah, they're coming to San Francisco. Come to San Francisco now. But if you're going to rent a car, leave roll the windows down, leave that back hatch open because they're stealing everything that's in it.
And
that's
stores-
the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. Stores are, I had dinner with somebody the other night, and it was all I could do to keep my mouth shut, but it was a birthday dinner for some guy. And I could hear them saying stuff about how much money they're making. They work in San Francisco, and they said, well, I guess they're closing the stores, and they claim it has to do something with crime.
They
do
say
you
it
think?
They say it has.
And
Oh,
the
my
other
God.
thing that I really had to bite my tongue on was I was just having my little birthday dinner. And I don't want to say anything to screw the birthday, but
That doesn't
how
sound
much?
like you. What the hell's wrong with you? You're supposed to shake it up.
I am so bad. I am so bad. I am bad. Anyway, but the other thing they said is how much money? Ooh, big money. You know where's big money? Sex change operations. Big money. Big money. Follow the money, folks. You know where things are going when you follow the money. Anyway, well, I don't know. I had a whole bunch of shit I wanted to talk about, but whatever.
What else?
Screw it. Whatever. What do you got?
Well, we got a new speaker. So
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I think his first item on the agenda was to give some money to Israel. But Israel is unusual in the world in the sense that you have three major religions call it sacred. You've got Islam, the Jews, and you have Christians. And
Any Christians left over there?
yeah, actually you do. And when I was there, you meet some, but not too many.
No, I didn't
You
think
do
so.
have some Palestinian Jews, and some of them, Palestinian Christians, and some of them are actually getting killed in Gaza. But the little bit, when I was talking to some of them, they hate, when I was over there, they hate the Jews too. So, and a lot of it, frankly, goes back to 1948. And what most people don't understand, this is now giving you kind of an overview. I gave a little bit last week, and just to know that World War I, Ottoman Empire, which is essentially Turkey's empire, lost, and that whole area was carved up. And Palestine, which was named by the Romans, Palestina, was given over to the British. The British controlled it. So they were now in charge. Why were they in charge? Because the peoples in that whole area lost the war. And so terms were dictated. And what were the terms? The terms were, under a Peel report, these Jews and these Arabs can't live together. You're going to have two states. So they created two states. And actually, that was World War II. This is World War I I'm talking about. God, I'm going to have to edit this out. So after World War I,
leave it in
after
there.
World War I, Balfour Declaration was a little bit before that. the British were in charge. Then comes World War II, okay? And of course, the Arabs want to get rid of the English there. So guess whose side they're on? They're on the side of the Germans. The Mufti of Palestine, he's sitting with Hitler and all the other people. They want the Jews out of there. And of course, they lost. Germans lost. So if you're on the losing side,
You lose.
terms are now dictated to you. Terms were dictated to Japan, to Germany, to Italy, and all the provinces that they controlled. And that province was down in Palestine. And so the British were in charge of that. So now you had a whole influx of Jews coming in. Okay, around 1900, they say there were like 500,000 Arabs in that area and maybe about 10,000 Jews. So by around 1948, you've got about 600,000 Jews and you have about 700,000 Arab Palestinians. Now, what you need to understand is they were all under the flag of the British. The British essentially were dictating the terms. Why? Because they were on the winning side. Okay? So the Israelis were getting stronger in numbers, and you had a faction of them. Eventually, they became the Irgun. They were extremely militant. All you got to do is read your Bible. At the time of Jesus, you had a group that's called the Zealots. The Zealots were the ones who were making trouble for the Romans. And so there's always that faction within Israel that essentially does not want to be ruled by a colonizer. And so there are more Jews coming in because they're not wanting to go back to Germany. Why? Because they were putting them in ovens, right? They didn't want to go back to Poland because they felt a lot of Poles sold them out. So they said, and some of them went to the United States, of course, but then they go, hey, we have historical homeland. And you had rich Jews like the Rothschilds and buying up kind of crappy land for the most part around
Making movies.
Netanya and that sort of part. And so Jews decided, and of course there was what's called the Zionist movement. Theodore Herzl's called the founder of that movement. A fairly secular movement, maybe 10% they said are religious, but it's a secular movement. So they said, come on down to Israel. And tiny little tidbit, most of them spoke German. In fact, a lot of them wanted German to be the official language of Israel. That's kind of lost in the history. Eventually they said, no, we're going to use our ancient language of Hebrew. And so you have all these Jews now coming in, and you've got problems because these two groups cannot live together, coexist. And the British were having a hard time, so guess what they did around 1947? They said, hey, United Nations, why don't you figure it out? Figure out a solution here. United Nations essentially said that these people can't live together. This is kind of the skinny here, not all the fat. It needs a two-state solution. And so they drew up the map where the Jews were supposed to live and the Arabs were supposed to live, and the Palestinian Arabs said, no can do. No, Israel does not have a right to exist. And at a certain month, I think it was May of 1947, the British said, we're out of here, we're gone. Because there were these militant Jews that were attacking the British, and they didn't do what the Romans did, which was to level the land. They just said, yeah, we're out of here. These people are crazy. And so the next day, or at that time, the Israelis said, we are now the independent state of Israel. And then the next day, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, and Iraq declared war on Israel and sent their forces in. Now, you would think, and from the Jewish side of the equation, you would say, man, that sounds like ethnic cleansing, right? Because you got 600,000 Jews. And the Palestinians talk about ethnic cleansing, but when you have all those tribes arrayed against you, it seems like the focus was, okay, let's finish off the Jews, and let's finish off what the Germans couldn't finish off. A final solution. Okay. Now here's the problem. And back, kind of before the war started, there were a lot of massacres on both sides. Now, for you to kind of understand it, in the founding of our country, during the Indian Wars, we had massacres. The Indians massacred some pioneer families, and we massacred Indian tribes, and it kind of went back and forth. You tracking?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm right there with
and,
you.
And so it just keeps perpetuating. You massacred us, we're going to massacre you. You massacred us again, we're going to So there were massacres on both sides. And so to this day, if you listen to some of these Palestinians in their hatred of the Jews, they're all going back to these massacres. Well, there were massacres on both sides. But there was one brutal one that the Irgun did on an Arab village that the Palestinians to this day just can't forget. Women and children. So war is ugly. There are horrible things that happen. What do? We bombed Dresden. We firebombed Dresden. There were a lot of civilians in that.
Hiroshima.
Yeah, Hiroshima. Well, a lot of innocents. Well, so the war ends. And again, to the victor go the spoils. But that's not the way the Arab Palestinians look at it. They go, we were driven off our land. Well, yes, it's because if you saw that there were all these tribes that wanted to wipe you out, would you allow them to come back knowing that they outnumber you, 700,000 to 600,000? Even though at the end of the war, numbers were slightly different. Would you allow them to come back and live amongst you, especially if you set up a democratic state? Anybody with their head screwed on would say, no, these people want to kill us. And so to this day, you will hear them say, they drove us off of our land. We were all peaceful. Well, peaceful if you're under the thumb of Sharia law, yeah, if you're a second-class citizen. But it's totally logical that the Jews, the Israelis said, these people want to harm us. And in a democratic state, if you had more Palestinians, Arabs, than Jews, hey, how many of you vote to have this go back to Palestine, go back to being under the rule of the Arabs? The Arabs would outnumber them, and there goes your Israeli state. And as I mentioned last week, what do the Jews value more than anything? Security now. They weren't safe in Germany. They weren't safe in Poland. They weren't safe in Russia with the pogroms there. They value safety. So what happened on October 7th shattered the idea of safety. Hamas unleashed the hounds of hell, if you really wanted to do that. So you listen to them now, they're all talking about massacres. What about the massacre back in 1948?
Sidebar.
That argument's it's never going to end.
Sidebar.
They lost the war.
Sidebar question: how many times has that little spot of ground changed hands in the last 2,500 years? A lot.
A lot.
Many times.
And why is it important? Is because you have three of the major religions, and you have a lot of Christians here evangelicals who are on the side of Israel. Why? Because they read in the Psalms to remember Israel and to remember Jerusalem. So you have those. And of course you have Catholics, that there's some Catholic churches there. And then of course the Jews believe that's where the temple was, and it was there. I've gone underneath the Temple Mount, and you could see the giant foundation stones for Solomon's Temple, huge stones that are there. And Islam, they believe the Dome of the Rock, that's where Muhammad, I believe, ascended to heaven, or he saw Abraham. There's something there. It's sacred to them as well.
Have you noticed you talk with your hands a lot?
Thank you. And so how's this thing going to end? Well, what triggers the Arabs more than anything is the fact that they lost. There's a word, I think they call it the Nabka, the catastrophe, the humiliation. It's the same. I'm going to circle back to Time Traveler. It's the same hate and humiliation that the Democrats and those in power feel when Trump became president. It's like, how could this have happened? It was a shocker to the Democratic and to the power establishment that Trump became president. Just imagine that on an exponential factor with the Arabs, that the Jews, who they believe are below contempt, was able to defeat the forces of Allah. It triggers them. They cannot believe that Israel is still there. And Hamas, in its charter, essentially, from when they say the river to the sea, that's the Jordan River, to the Mediterranean Sea, they want Israel wiped off the map.
And these are college kids now that want that.
Exactly right. So why would, and Hamas's idea, so this whole thing is going to go badly. We're telling you here now. Why? Because Hamas is an idea. You've got them here, Berkeley campus, Georgetown, you name it.
And coming across the border now.
They're going, yay Hamas, kill the Jews, kill it. They're saying that openly. So, okay, so you're gonna wipe out some leaders. More leaders will rise up. That's how deep-seated the hatred is, because it's religious to them. And they see the Jews there as being a stain on that land. Because a majority of, if the fact be known, the majority of the Jews there are not religious. They're secular. They are. And that's like an abomination to the Arabs there. Because they essentially want a caliphate and want that whole region under the rule of Sharia law. So that's what I have. And how about all you who said there was chaos with what Matt Gaetz did with all those other guys taking down Speaker McCarthy? Now we've got Johnson in there, who's a little bit, has some affinity with Make America Great Again, and the mainstream media is going crazy, Time Traveler.
I know.
They go, this guy's a hater, this guy,
That's what they do. That's why we don't have any real reporters.
This guy is a terrorist. I mean, they throw these words all out there, terrorist.
Words.
Yeah, even Newt Gingrich went sideways calling Matt Gaetz a terrorist. I'm like, get out of here. A real terrorist is those in Hamas. Literally, those are the terrorists. What you saw just happen in Congress, that's democracy. And what the other side, the Democrats, call democracy, is not a democracy. It's like, oh, if you believe like us, then that's making it safe for democracy. And they're scaring everybody to say that Trump now wants to become a king, an oligarch.
I've heard that before.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. It's there for you low information viewers, it's there to scare you so that you go, oh yeah, he wants to be the king. He wants to be a dictator. Oh God, It's like those gals who parade like in red dresses in the white little bonnets, the Handmaid's Tale. They really think that Christians like us want to make them all submit and just have babies. It's a cartoon of reality.
Works for me. Well, anyway, now they're trying to, basically, I think their intent is to break Trump financially.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, that's why, all these charges have been out there for years and years and years. All of a sudden now, this year, we have all these charges come up on, you talk about voter intervention, that's whatever the word you want to use.
It's voter suppression. They're essentially getting in the way of the election.
Well, that's okay. You can pull a fire alarm. That's okay if you're a Democrat.
Oh, did you just see they
gave him nothing.
They released a video cam, and this guy took off the sign.
I saw that. Yeah. They took off the sign.
Of course, he lied before that. They lie.
Yeah. What? Oh, the border is secure.
Yeah.
Our economy is growing.
And here's one thing. I was listening just to get up to speed. There's a very liberal Israeli Jewish scholar by the name of Benny Morris. Okay, he's just as critical of his countrymen as the others. And the reason why we know a lot about these massacres and a lot about some of the things that were done improperly by the Jews, by Israel, is because Israel, and especially also Britain, have let outside news services, and anybody who's interested in look at the books, look at all the correspondence that happened between their militant groups. You can literally go to Israel, go into their libraries, and you can request it and just read the correspondence that's going on between the group. He was saying, and I kind of believe him, the Palestinian Arabs and those surrounding have not released their correspondence and what they were talking about. So you really don't know.
Yeah.
But they all say this is what happened. Just like now, they're saying, was it 7,000 people? Well, who reports that? Hamas is reporting.
Right, yeah.
Hamas is,
Like the bombing of the school or
Yeah.
hospital, whatever it was.
right. So you can't believe them. And so for people like Chris Hedges who thinks, it's all the Jews' fault, they're the lies, yeah, the hell with you. Anyway, that's it for me.
Nah, I got nothing else either. I got to go to work.